Welcome to the Fishbowl Radio, everybody. My name is Chief here, and joining me today is Jalen. We're gonna recap basically what happened this past week in Raging Cajun sports here. We got uh, softball, men's basketball, women's basketball, and we're gonna have baseball kind of on Friday as well here. That brand new season starting there with a preview of that coming up with that three-game series here. So there's a lot to talk about and not that much time, so we can try to get everything and try to get everybody up to date what's going on with Louisiana Ragin Cajuns athletics across all the major sports. So without further ado, let me introduce everybody to Jalen. How you doing today, Jalen?
Hey, I'm doing well, Chief. Another great week to be a Raging Cajun. And like you said, Chief, so many sports to talk about, and I'm ready to dive into it.
All right, so let's start off with softball. So there was a couple of people that were like really worried about the softball team. Now, granted, when we made our predictions, we kind of were like, okay, we didn't really know too much about the pitching. The pitching was going to be kind of an interesting point that we needed to see here, but looking at it coming out of it here, I think they have potential. Now, the first two games did not go according to plan at all. So, dropped the game to Seton Hall. And Texas, we already kind of predicted they would lose to Texas. We didn't think they would lose to Seton Hall, but we Texas was like, okay, this team isn't quite where they need to be. We at the end, with our preseason prediction, we have them finishing in a regional. We have them their season ending in a regional, which I think it's a fair point. That's what the standard is of the program here to get to the regional at least here. And I mean, with Gary Glasgow kind of moving abroad and moving on, his highest he ever got was super regional. He did not match his predecessor's success. So looking at that now here, just looking back at what we saw a week here, what I saw was I think the interior of the defense looked better under Allison Habits more than it did under Gary Glasgow. I thought the interior defense played better. I thought that was something that I saw improvement in. Now the hitting is down. Like I look at the hitting and be it down, and pitching's obviously down too. But that's what happened whenever you see a lot of people in the transfer portal at one time. That's usually what happens and depletes your team, your lineup wise. But I think the coaching is a little bit better this time around. What you think, Jalen?
Yeah, I think so far, and for everybody out there, you do have to realize too, it's the beginning of the season. I know they kind of started things kind of rocky. They're trying to trying to shake back, which they did, which they shook back the loss against Seton Hall, and then they ended up beating this Longwood team. Before they even beat Longwood, they ended up beating George Mason. Now I know that we both predicted, Chief, that they were going to lose against Texas, but at the same time, Texas is going to be one of the top teams in the nation. So there's no it's no fault of theirs losing that one. But I agree with you, Chief. So far this season, they're trying to come together as a team. Of course, like you said, the hits are not going to be there. You're not going to get those stolen bases from Maya Davis. She's not a program anymore. You're not going to get, Allison Habits and Jerry Glasgow have two different styles of coaching. And you could tell even in that loss in that first game against Seton Hall that the girls, they're playing different than they did last year with some of the girls that returned that were playing with Jerry Glasgow versus this time playing with Allison Habits. So you see the difference. And they kind of did come together and get their revenge against Seton Hall, winning 9-1 in 6 innings. They're beating George Mason 6 innings. So I mean, you look at it too, Chief. The last three games, they only combined 3 runs. So it's starting off slow, picking things up, but hey, it's the beginning of the year, Chief. We just got to see. And hey, next game coming up is Valentine's Day. They trying to maybe spread a little love and show Northern Illinois what it's all about to come to Lamson Park and what the hype is for this Raging Cajuns softball team.
Oh yeah, they got two games on Valentine's Day, the 14th. Okay, PSA told them in, go get the flowers, go get the chocolates, because they're gonna be some mad women out there if you don't get that done. But anyway, Northern Illinois, Ole Miss, uh, that's gonna be two games that will be very interesting to kind of see how Allison Habits handles that kind of schedule there with Ole Miss and SEC team coming to town and Northern Illinois coming to town as well. So with that there, then you got Sam Houston coming on the Saturday and Central Arkansas coming on Saturday, two back-to-back games there, and Ole Miss on Sunday as coming back for two games there. So looking at it there, it's going to be interesting to see how they handle this adversity earlier in the season here. Tyra Clary, one of the transfers that came in from Nevada this past year for this season here for her senior season. She's already dealing with an injury. Looks like to her. They didn't give any specifics of what it was, but if you watched the game or were at the game, her leg was wrapped up in ice for part of it. Speculation between ankle, knee injury, something about. I don't know if it was Longwood or George Mason. I think it was George Mason that the game was. My memory kind of cloudy with it, but uh came off the like she walked under her own power. So I don't think it's gonna be an injury that's gonna limit her for a long period of time. I think she'll like if she tweaks something, she might be out for rest for like a week or two just to get her back there. But they do have other pitchers that are hurt as well in that one here. So uh that is something to see what's gonna happen here. So um it's interesting to see what's going to happen with that injury there. I know the pitching staff did have some injuries, like Del Bray was one of them, and so uh, it's kind of interesting because I don't really like Lexi Del Bray an injury. Maybe Hoover might come back as well here later on in the season here. So um, Hoover might be ready by March. That is one of the prognosis. That's something that I've heard on the street, basically, which.
Yeah.
Delbray is kind of an unknown, though. She might be able to play sometime this season, but they might be keeping things on the down low, like the strategy reasons, like you're not preparing that person to start or whatever. But we'll see what happens when they talk about all that kind of stuff there and just kind of see here um how all that goes in that game here. But you know what? You got your leg wrapped on ice or whatever, you might come back here, like maybe March or whatever. I'm not a doctor, I don't try to pretend to be a specialist in this kind of thing here, but just if you tore ligaments in your knee and they might have wrapped it in ice, keep swelling down, or if you twist your ankle or whatever, it's hard to, it apparently happened in the sixth inning against George Mason is what I'm thinking it was, if I remember right. I think that's when it happened, but I did watch it again. I'm trying to remember exactly what happened, but that is something that we're gonna have to kind of watch and see who pitches. Sage Ryan might be one that you might get there as well here. But looking at these games here, Jalen, how you feel these games gonna come up for the Cajuns here? Do you think they win all these games this weekend?
Yeah, so well, you start. I'm starting. I think they're gonna beat Northern Illinois, and I do feel like that I'm going to say this, Chip. I think they're going to get the win against Ole Miss. They need to get that one win the beginning of the year against a top team, Ole Miss being in the SEC. I think the Cajuns will get the win. It'll be tough in a back to back on Valentine's Day, but I think they could do it. And then going into Saturday against Sam Houston, I think that since they're playing their third game in 2 days like that, I think they ultimately might lose the one to Sam Houston, but then bounce back later that night against Central Arkansas, and then Sunday I think Ole Miss is going to get a little revenge. So I think they're kind of so what that's this that's 5 games. They're going to go 3-2.
Yeah, I think that does make sense to me. Last season, Ole Miss finished 31 and 27. Last season they did make it to a regional. You know, they were in the Lafayette regional last year. If you remember Ole Miss here, they played Baylor and Princeton, got knocked out in 2 games. You know, I mean Baylor ended up winning the Lafayette regional anyway. Uh,
Yeah,
so that was, they this was a regional team last year, and it's very hard to say that they don't have. But the way the game is structured nowadays, it's really hard to say like, hey, like this is the same team like last year. We're trying to keep track of all these teams, all the transfer portal mess that they have going on with all that here. Them trying to get it cleared for all your teams, not just the Cajuns, but big teams got to deal with it too, like Ole Miss and all the other SEC teams here, because they're all in bidding wars with these players and stuff with these NIL collectives and stuff. So that's something that it's even affecting baseball and softball here. Not as much, I would say. Well, let me rephrase that. They're dealing it with less money because there's not as much money in the baseball and softball sports, um, as there would be in basketball and football because that's the ones that make more money for a lot of these programs here too. So looking at how Ole Miss right now, they're 4-1. They're going to play Southern Miss on Wednesday. And, they're coming to Lafayette. They got a little bit different schedule here. They got Sam Houston and the Cajuns, Northern Illinois, Central Arkansas, and then Louisiana again. But right now, the Cajuns are sitting at an RPI of 88 with softball, so that's going to change. Like, this is going to be a big moving target with everybody here. So that is something that we're going to have to look at to see what's going to happen there. But I think they're going to split with the Ole Miss game. I think that's something that you can look at here and say, I think they'll beat Northern Illinois. Ole Miss, I say they split those games. I think they'll beat Sam Houston. I think they'll beat Central Arkansas. So give me a 4-1 record for this weekend as well, which give them 2 losses on the year. I mean, not 2 losses, 3 losses on the year. They'll be 7-3 when they come out of it, and you'll be looking ahead when they play Houston on Saturday, which will give the Cajuns a break a little bit because it's almost a whole week they'll have to go without playing. So they might be a little bit they might be a little like laggy basically with it, but a 7-3 record going against Houston, which they play I mean 3 times next week, which will be really their first series that you would actually look at here and see. So, um, that is something to look forward to for them here, but we'll see what happens with all that there. So, Jalen, we're gonna talk about some Louisiana Ragin Cajun baseball here. Baseball is kicking back up here for the Cajuns here. They got a 3-game series against San Jose State here in this season here. So, Jalen, what you think about this baseball team? I mean, they made it to the regionals last year in the Texas A&M regional here. Got the bad flip from Jose Torres. That's been kind of the rallying cry, basically. Torres is just a great baseball player. I mean, I'm expecting big things out of him this year. Jalen, what you think about this 2025 Raging Cajun baseball team?
Yeah, so I think well, obviously what every team want to do, they want to be better than they were the year before. And I think this Cajuns team, they're coming right back into the thick of things, starting out with San Jose State, which they're playing also on Valentine's Day, Chief. That's uh hey, you can catch the women and the men. But as far as talking about the season, 3 game series against San Jose State, I think the first game, I think not even the first game, I think the first series, and like I say, Jose Torres is great, but it are you able to replace the Sun Belt Player of the Year, Kyle DeBarge? I think Debo was not only like just the Sun Belt Player of the Year, but he was the player who did the most with the Cages. He hit the home runs. He helped anchor things on defense. It's just, are you able to replace a guy like that? And coming into this season, we have to see if Coach McDaniels is able to replace a player like that and able to get a team effort to not only win games in the Sun Belt, but to get to even further than they did last year and winning when they were able to actually get to the regional. And hey, they did. They might have lost the first game, but they were able to upset that Texas team. I know you remember that, Chief, going to last season. So building on that momentum, I want to see how this team is going to play. So, hey, I think the first series against San Jose State will tell a lot.
Yeah, the Cajuns are 5-5 in their last 10 games here. Of course, their streak currently right now is 1 loss, obviously, to the Texas A&M team but A&M was just one of those great teams last year, made all the way to Omaha and stuff. So, look, these first 7 games the Cajuns got, I think they're going to win this series against San Jose State, but they might start off a little slow. I mean, that's normal. It's the Cajuns got hotter toward the end of the year last year, and that was something that, really helped them out a good bit here. So San Jose State, they I was disappointed how the Cajuns ended the 2024 season because they win the Sun Belt Championship. They won the regular season championship. Then you go into the conference tournament, you lose your first 2 games, get bounced out. So that is something they're going to improve on when they get in postseason play. Not to be we I know we had made an episode of them getting too hot too early, And that proved to be a very important thing because I was worried about the Cajuns getting too hot. That's how baseball is. If you've played the sport of baseball, you know what I'm talking about. Kind of same thing with basketball. If you Baseball is more so about momentum whenever you're building up to a season here because if you play the sport, you know whenever you're swinging a hot bat, can hit everything, but you don't know when you're going to cool down, but everybody cools down. I don't care how good of a player you are, you will hit a cool down spot. It might last a game, it might last 2 games, 3 games. It just depends on how it all plays out. You might be off 1 game. There's a lot of games that we played, and you just hope that that 1 game that you're off doesn't doom your season. So that is what happens in this sport of baseball. Just to give a little synopsis here. So I think the Cajuns, I think they win this series against San Jose State, and then they'll win against Texas Southern. Midweek games. You want to win your series as much as you possibly can here. Of course, everybody starts with the RPI of 1. And this lineup's going to be interesting. We know Torres is going to be behind the plate. They're not going to let him, like, he's going to probably be one of the biggest stars of this Cajun roster. You got Chase Morgan as well. That is looking at it here. So, look, this is going to be one of those that we're just looking at here. And, like you mentioned it, Jalen, about Kyle DeBarge. Who's going to be the guy that's going to step in and replace him? I think it's going to be Torres. Chase Morgan was selected as the Sun Belt preseason pitcher of the year. That is something that they don't take lightly. And I like whenever you have a really good bullpen, which I think the Cajuns do have a good bullpen, and I think they got a good pitching staff here. So Morgan was voted by the league's 14 head coaches here. Lee Amadei, who was selected at third base, joined on one of the preseason teams. So look, the Cajuns have a lot to work with. It's not going to be bad in terms of the lineup here. Leon Medeo will probably start at third base. It's just there's a lot of I lineups it's going to change a lot between those first couple of weeks here. So I wouldn't get too focused on like projected starting part of the season here because this lineup's going to change. Somebody's going to come on hot probably off the bench and like maybe do some magic there and might impress Coach Deggs enough to get him in there. But we don't know who that's going to be. Baseball's one of probably one of the funnest sports to cover because of the fact that you just don't know what you have until you actually see it out there on the field here. So um, the Cajuns have placed 2 on the preseason All Sun Belt team. So that is something to look at. Cajuns got 3 first place votes, and they have enough votes to be third in the conference. Southern Miss ended up winning the tournament last year, the conference tournament, which got them an auto bid to the NCAA tournament. Cajuns ended up winning the regular season, but they got a higher seed than Southern Miss, so that's something to kind of see here. There's a lot of bantering back and forth in the Twitter sphere of between the Southern Miss fans and the Cajun fans about that whole mess. Like about like I think some reporter out of like Hattiesburg had mentioned oh they're going to defend their like back-to-back titles or whatever, which is a little misleading, but it is what it is. I mean, they both made the tournament last year, so just kind of rambling on at that point. So, but I think that the way this season's gonna go here, I think the Cajuns will end up making it to a regional in baseball again this year. I like the way the schedule kind of sets up for them in that regard there. I feel comfortable with saying that, Jalen. How you feel this baseball team's gonna do this year?
Yeah, I think this team can make it to a regional again. Of course, the goal was to get to the next round, but I think definitely the ceiling for this team is going to be getting to the regional. I do agree with you, Chief. When you look at Jose Torres could be that guy because Jose Torres, I mean, other than the back flip, he was a great player last year. He's coming back this year. He's going to be right there behind the plate. He's going to be a great, even better player this year. More experience with this team, more experience with Coach Matt Deggs. So I think the ceiling is very high for this team. And hey, they're a team again that I think is going to win the regular season.
Yeah, that's something that's gonna be interesting to see what's gonna happen here. How you think this is gonna go? Like Like, well, what you think? Like, who, like, besides Torres and like, how you view the Cajuns pitching staff entering 2025?
I think I would say it's different. I would say than years past. But like you said, I mean, pre preseason Sun Belt is nothing to joke about. Like you said with Chase Morgan, that's nothing to you just don't pick a random person just because he played the Sun Belt that's going to win uh, an award like that. So I think the pitching is going to be it's different, but it's going to be even better this year. I think the biggest thing for this team is you're going to have somebody that's going to hit the ball more so than who's going to be out there pitching. But I think the pitching is going to be better. Cajuns do have a lot of players that have returned, not and a lot of players we haven't even named, but I think and a few other transfers coming in there, a few freshmen. So adding in, but that's just the way of college sports in general, how it works. But overall, when it comes to pitching, hey, I think it's going to be a big year for Cajuns pitching. It's going to lead the way for them.
Like, they got Dylan Dewitt, and Riley Marcotte. I'm just trying to see who like there's names that people would know on this list here. They got a couple like new Connor Higgs in the outfield. He might be a starter. We'll just see what happens with it here. I mean, I think they're gonna put in some freshmen in there somewhere. That's what I'm thinking. I think that's what they're gonna do here in certain positions here. I don't like the middle of the infield is kind of where I'm kind of drawing a question mark for me personally because you mentioned Debo, and that is something that is very hard to replace a player like Debo. You don't get those every single day that's growing off the branch, the tree. So that is something we're going to look at here as this goes along and this does that kind of thing there. But we'll see what happens whenever it gets down to it here. So I think Cajuns win. Like I said, I think they win this first series. I don't think it's going to be a and they'll be Texas Southern, I think, and just and continue along their way here. But like I said, and they're like, you shouldn't be talking about like the hot streak ending, but someone's got to raise the question: is this being too early? Of a season, and we got some flack for that too. But we should get flack for almost everything we open our mouth for, basically. But yeah, But yeah, there's something like that. That is something you gotta watch though in baseball. If you've watched this sport over the years, trust me, I've watched plenty of baseball in my life, and I've even played the sport myself, so I know what I'm talking about whenever I talk about it. So that's something there. It's the same basically. MLB the same way, college baseball the same way, high school baseball, little pee wee baseball. That when the weather warms up, you seem to hit better. That's physics, which is crazy if you think about hot air rises, baseball, getting hit. Physics, man. Give you a physics
Yeah,
lesson about baseball. But anyway, so let's talk about Ragin Cajun men's basketball here real quick here. They're wrapping up their season basically here. They got Troy on Wednesday, Marshall on Saturday, then again here. So uh, it, it's been a disappointing season, and we're gonna find out who the new coach of the Raging Cajun men's basketball team is gonna be within coming up in the next couple of weeks once Sun Belt Conference play wraps up or whatever. So not their last conference win was in January. They lost to South Alabama. They lost to Georgia Southern. So I think they'll drop the game to Troy. I think they're gonna lose to Marshall as well. I think that they're gonna drop both those games here because I mean they're able to beat teams, but they're really like Northern Illinois is 2-18 against Division I teams. Yeah, like UOM, they swept them. They only have 4 wins on the year. So Coastal 6 wins in Division I. It's stuff like that. Their best win in the Sun Belt was against App State. So that tells me a lot right there. And I think Troy, Marshall, like if you're just looking at that, you're like, yeah, they're gonna lose. They're gonna probably lose both games to Troy. They'll probably lose to Marshall. So I think they'll lose their next three for sure. And they'll probably beat Southern Miss, honestly. Southern Miss hasn't been that great this year. They only got 8 wins. So that's how I see their next 4 games going. What you think, Jalen?
yeah, it hasn't been a great year for the men's basketball team, and the fact, Chief, that you mentioned that the best win they had was against App State at home. But you got to think about that, Chief. That was way before it was in December. Now it's a week before Christmas. We're going into the midweek of February. So I mean, like we talked about, it hasn't been a great year. They will have they I don't know if they're going to retain Zimmerman or going to get a new coach yet, but we'll see once the season is over with. But as far as right now, I mean, they already lost uh two straight Sun Belt games against South Al. Georgia Southern lost them by 1 point, lost to South Al by four, so it was close. They got Troy coming up. Troy is right there at the top of the Sun Belt. They're second in the Sun Belt right now to Arkansas State. I think Cajuns will lose to Troy. I think they'll also lose to Marshall, and then you have to go to Troy next. I think they ultimately lose that one. I hate to see the Cajuns go on a 3 game losing streak, but I do think that they'll play close and get a win against Southern Miss. But it hasn't been the best season, especially after Bar Marlin was released as head coach. So the Cajuns are just trying to trying to end the season off winning. And I'm not saying that they can't do that, but anything is possible. But it just really hasn't been a great year. You just have to prepare and bounce back for next year.
So we're gonna switch to Louisiana Ragin Cajuns women's basketball to kind of wrap this up here real quick. Their next four games: Texas State, UOM, Texas State on the road, and UOM on the road. So that's their next four here. I mean, they don't have to really travel around too much here. Then I mean, they finished with South Alabama and Southern Miss, which they they haven't really been. I mean, they lost to Coastal 68 to 77, and they beat Troy. Good win for them. Like later on, and then they lost to App State, which I thought they should have won that App State game. They didn't. It's been one disappointment there. Here, I expected more out of the squad. I'm not really feeling too good about Gary Broadhead's um performance this year as coach here. You got to be able to finish off the games. I think they got the players. I just don't think the scheme's missing a little bit something there. But Texas State, I think they should win these next four games. They really and truly should. Just based on what I'm seeing with the way the trend of this team has been this year. So I think Smia Johnson, Lafayette, they've been playing very well for this team here. So I think I expect them to carry it away, and I expect them to get some wins here. They got their next two games at home, so this will be a really good chance for them to get some wins here. I think they win. They're gonna drop one of these next four here, and I don't think they'll lose to UOM. I think it's gonna be a split between the Texas State games. I say 1-1 against Texas State, probably lose on the road for their next, and then beat UOM for their next, and sweep them for the season. I think that's how that's gonna go this year for them. What you think, Jalen?
Yeah, I think the Cajuns. I think they get the win at home against Texas State, get the win against ULM, but then where they go to Texas State, I think they'll lose that one. But then go to ULM and beat them. I mean, like you said, Chief. I mean, they started off really good to start the year. Then in the middle, they started losing games, and now recently they started winning, and then they lose, and they lose, and they win, and it's like back and forth, and they're dropping in the standings. And to be honest with you, when you talk about like Lafayette, the players on this team, this is the most veteran team that Coach Gary Brown has had in years. So if he can, win and get to that next stage with this team, I mean, who knows what the future is going to be?
Yeah. So we'll see what happens here with the ending of basketball season as we transition from basketball to the spring sports here. So we got that like coming up through March here, and then April and May. We'll see what happens when we get down to all that there. So thank y'all for tuning in here to this episode here of the Fishbowl Sports Radio. Hope you follow us on all our social media channels: Facebook, X, YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok as well. Thank you for tuning in to this episode here. We hope you have a great and wonderful day, and we'll see you here next time on Fishbowl Sports Radio. Have a good night, Fishbowl Nation.